So most of you may not remember, but one of my very first videos on YouTube last year was about the genius of Inio Asano. Now, some things never change, and Inio Asano is still one of my favorite authors to date. And I thought I would continue my YouTube journey in a similar fashion by talking about my newest obsession, and that is Shuzo Oshimi. Now, people who've read Oshimi works won't be too surprised by this, because to me, he feels very, very similar to Asano. He deals with really complex and difficult subject matter, and he doesn't shy away from the difficult imagery involved in those. Some of his stories are also very depressing at times, but I find them very engrossing, really engaging, and all three of these series that I'm going to talk about today are within my favorite manga that I've ever read, and they were impossible to put down. So these are in no particular order, but I just want to say that I love all of them and you should check all of them out, but for different reasons. So we'll go in the order that I read them, I suppose, which is the easiest way to do it. And starting off, we're going to talk about Happiness. So Happiness is a series about vampires, and I was actually really obsessed with this. I picked it up as a cover buy because all the covers are gorgeous, and just all of Oshimi's art is really beautiful. So Happiness has got a pretty basic premise. It's about a school kid who gets attacked by a vampire and he becomes a vampire, you know, pretty bog standard. What really sets it apart from other vampire stories is that it's grounded very much in reality. It's kind of a lot about the character relationships, how he comes to terms with what it means to be a vampire, and it's not just this like romance story that we've seen in the past, and it's not just this mindless bloodbath type of vampire story that we've seen in the past either. A lot of the initial volumes fall under the category of what does this mean for me and, you know, my kind of existence? How do I now function? So he's learning his abilities as a vampire, he's meeting other vampires and kind of discovering that some of them are friendly and some of them are not so much. And yeah, the typical kind of Tokyo Ghoul style thing happens without all the elaborate battles, in the sense that he's hunted down by like a government agency. And then it becomes really interesting, but also goes downhill a little bit in the fact that there's a time skip. So all of Shuzo Oshimi's works, except for one that I've read so far, have had these time skips in them, which I enjoy, because just as you feel like it's coming to a bit of a close or a bit of a lull, he then throws in a curveball and there's a time skip and the story and the dynamic completely changes, which is a good thing but a bad thing as well. So I binge read the first 5 volumes and then the time skip happens, and then I was a little bit like, I have to slow down now, and I think he lost his momentum with it at that point. Another thing to mention is that all of these works are really short, which is a great thing, but also a bad thing as well. So for me, Happiness felt rushed at times. It felt like he was just experimenting a little bit too much with where he wanted the story to go. And there's a bit towards the end with like a cult in it, which was really cool. It ramps up the action and then it just falls flat, and he kind of wraps it up really fast. And I was bitterly disappointed. I think that of his works that I've read so far, Happiness had the most potential, but is perhaps the weakest of the three. Again, I want to stress that the art was gorgeous, and there was a particular part in it as well where there's some flashbacks, and he changes up his art style and makes it less refined and more sketchy to, you know, kind of personify this image of a flashback, of a memory, and that was absolutely stunning, and I haven't seen that before, so I was really impressed by that. And the characters were really interesting as well, but I just don't think he quite fleshed them out as much as he could have. Okay, so the next Oshimi work that I read but I actually picked this one up first, is the Flowers of Evil. So you might have seen the video that I made about the best parts of my manga collection, and these single volumes are in that. So the reason being, again, is that these are really out of print and they're now in an omnibus version. And I think the omnibus versions are really nice, they're a bit bigger, and it's a really nice way to experience a story, but as someone who prefers single volumes, this was the only way to go. So I found that on eBay, I picked it up really quick because I'd heard good things, but I knew not what I was getting myself into. And yeah, when I finished Happiness, I felt a bit empty and a bit sad at how it ended, so I immediately dove into what is referred to as his best manga work. Now, The Flowers of Evil for me was a very weird one. So it's a story about perverts, I suppose, and adolescence and, you know, becoming an adult and learning what's right and wrong. It's all about puberty, I guess, like going through puberty and the emotions that you feel, but it's told in a really odd way. Now, this is what makes it genius, but also quite difficult for some people in particular to kind of digest. This story follows a young boy who is in love with a girl in his class, which is very standard. But then when she goes home, she leaves her gym bag and he finds it, and lo and behold, he picks it up, he takes it home, and he does weird things to the clothes in there. Yeah, straight off the bat, a little bit strange. I was a little bit worried about what I was getting myself into. And to make matters worse, another girl in his class discovers that he's done this, and she blackmails him into doing really weird things. Otherwise, she will tell the girl what he did to her clothes. So it's all pretty horrible. It's all pretty, you know, disgusting in parts, but that is really what I loved about it. It shows how horrible kids can be. Like, growing up is tough. I know some people have really good childhoods, but I didn't. And I mean, nothing like this ever happened to me, but I've experienced, you know, I've been burned by kids before and how horrible they can be. And I thought that this was a really important story, albeit a difficult one to digest at times. Initially, the art is a little bit janky at the beginning, it's a little bit unrefined, and then, as I said, there's a time skip, and then it seems to improve gradually, and it gets to the standard of Happiness, in my opinion, by the last 3 or 4 volumes. So it's not bad by any means, but because I'd read Happiness first, I judged it a little bit too harshly, I would say, in the beginning. So yeah, definitely going into The Flowers of Evil, I was a little bit apprehensive. I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, but if you're like me, then stick with it, because I think it's really important. It's a really, really great story, and the things that happen to the kid, I mean, are tough and hard to read, but it later, you know, explains how he then, you know, it molded him into who he is as a person and as an adult. And I think that that was my takeaway from it. I think, you know, I could relate to that in some sense, because the horrible things that might have happened to me in my childhood have definitely changed the way that I am as a person, and I think for the better. And I feel like that's what this story is. So for me, it certainly goes without saying that The Flowers of Evil is definitely worth the hype, and it is worth the acclaim that is received, in my opinion. It's not a story for everyone, just as Asano isn't for everyone, but for me, this sort of story was something that I was craving after I finished the most recent volume of Dead Dead Demons, and I really needed something else in my life to binge, and Shuzo Oshimi really knew how to fill that void with some quality manga. Okay, and finally, the third series that I've read so far by Shuzo Oshimi, and I've only read 3 volumes to date, is Inside Mari, or Mari, because I'm really northern and I pronounce it weird. This was a gift from Highland Manga for Christmas, and she got it me because she'd seen that I was posting a lot on Instagram about Shuzo Oshimi, and she actually said that she was quite jealous and she really wanted to read it and she thought I would enjoy it, and boy, was it awesome. This is another really important story, but a very weird story. So it's about a guy who's obsessed with a girl. He follows her home every day from this convenience store, and then one day he wakes up in her body, like Your Name style. But there is a huge twist in this story, and I am not going to tell you because for me it was mind-blowing, and it's what made this story brilliant. It's not what you expect, it's not another Freaky Friday clone, and it's definitely not like Your Name. But from what I've read of, you know, the forwards in the story and, you know, the bits at the back where the author tells you a little bit more about his process, is that he said that he would like to live as a woman, but not as a man in a woman's body. He said that he feels like he's only experiencing half of what the world has to offer as a man, and even if he was a man in a woman's body, he would still have the same mindset and the same outlook on life. And I thought that that was a brilliant thought, because we're only experiencing half of what life has to offer in our own, you know, gender. And this story is just really brilliant and really like out there. There's stuff in there where the guy kind of experiences a period for the first time, or, you know, his first kiss but as a girl. Like, it's weird to digest, it's really kind of odd, but I think that's what makes it brilliant. I've not read anything like this before. It's pretty gross, like the imagery is pretty gross in parts, and it's very explicit in the way that it delivers it, but it does it in a tasteful way, because I suppose the overarching message is that women go through some shit that men will never understand. So yeah, I certainly think that Inside Maori at the minute is my favourite Oshimi work, and I hope to pick up the final volumes very soon. But any of those three are definitely a great place to start with Oshimi works. And please let me know in the comments below if there are any others that aren't published in the UK that I might want to check out. So yeah, I think the take-home message is that Oshimi is a very, very odd mangaka, but a brilliant one. He produces manga unlike anything you've read before, and they all have a very strong message and strong themes. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy this style of video. So please let me know in the comments below, you know, which mangaka you'd like me to talk about next, perhaps, because I can always do more of these. And yeah, as always, please hit that like button. If you hit the subscribe button, then make sure you click the little bell to be notified when new videos are available. And thanks for everything, and I'll catch you next time.